In my senior year of high school, during a research class, my friend once turned to me and gleefully boasted about spending over 6 hours playing Minecraft each evening. I asked him, of course, why he spent so much time playing the game. At this point in my life, I found it difficult to sit down and play even the most engaging title for more than an hour straight, and I've always found Minecraft, even when modded, to be incredibly dull. He answered that he enjoyed the feeling of satisfaction earned after painstakingly constructing a new architectural marvel, of mining a wall and watching diamonds fly into his inventory, of seeing the fruits of his labor after hours of determined struggle. I replied that if he spent the same amount of time doing push-ups each evening as he did playing Minecraft, that not only would his feeling of satisfaction be much more gratifying and sustained, but that he would have physical benefits to show for it as well. I distinctly remember the look on his face, watching the wheel slowly turn in his head as he sat in silence. Finally, he swiveled back to his computer and answered curtly, "Nah, I like Minecraft." Video games have had a significant impact on my life. They are a formative part of my childhood, a statement I'm sure many of you can relate to, and I believe that they are something worthy of discussion. There is a hefty deal of argument online as to whether video games can be considered art. Andrei Tarkovsky, the director of films such as Stalker, Solaris, and Andrei Rublev, as well as one of my favorite artists, said this: "Before defining art, or any concept, we must first answer a much broader question. What is the meaning of man's life here on Earth? Maybe we are here to enhance ourselves spiritually. If our life tends to spiritual enrichment, then art is a means to get there." You may not agree with the way Tarkovsky views life. You may believe that the purpose of life is to attain material success, or to have as much fun as possible. You may simply believe that there is no higher purpose to life. Setting aside all lofty arguments of theology and philosophy, let's take a very pointed and pragmatic look at those who live for the sake of pleasure compared to those who live and die for a higher ideal. Most people I've met who spend each day chasing their next hit of dopamine, no matter what form it may take, are miserable. They hate spending time alone, they can't handle being in silence with their own thoughts, and they feel as if everything around them is worthless, vapid, and hollow. Meanwhile, let's take a look at people who dedicate themselves to a higher spiritual cause centered around self-sacrifice and struggle, monks of all religious denominations. Christian or Buddhist, Muslim or Hindu, they bear the same pain and suffering that we do, but their suffering gives their lives meaning and propels them onward. They are often some of the happiest, most fulfilled individuals you will ever meet. Art enriches man's spiritual capabilities, Tarkovsky says, and he can then rise above himself. Art is a means of calling man to a more noble ideal, of drawing his thoughts away from the accumulation of material things or the enjoyment of base pleasures. Art helps man to think of things that are intangible but felt, such as God, the nation, or pure and untainted emotions, such as love. Assuming that one is sympathetic to Tarkovsky's view of life and art, video games cannot lay claim to any semblance of artistic merit. It's true, yes, video games can conjure beautiful imagery and stories just as any film or book, but this beauty is of an illusory and deceptive nature. A movie asks only 2 hours of your time. A book takes only however long it requires a man to read it. A video game, however, is a fundamentally homogeneous experience that is designed to waste your time. Whether or not a video game can create a thrilling and beautiful story is irrelevant. The human body is also beautiful, yet few would consider pornography to be of artistic value. Beautiful or not, it causes man to dwell on lower ideas and instant gratification. A commonly cited game is The Last of Us, but however poignant and touching the story may be, it still has to be broken up with segments of enjoyable shooting and extreme spontaneous violence for entertainment's sake. Each gaming experience, seemingly unique, is being shared with millions of young men around the world who are each railroaded through beautiful stories for as long as the developers can manage. They seek to hold your presence through the use of artificially long missions, stories, side quests, and free roam activities. The worth of the game, as they perceive it, is in how long they can hold you within the illusion. If you subscribe to Tarkovsky's view of life, however, spending hours in a homogeneous and uniform illusion is the obvious enemy of spiritual progress. It is a misdirection of the masculine impulse to work, build, and succeed at arduous tasks, as eloquently described by my Minecraft-addicted friend. These healthy and generative impulses are swept into a vortex of digital fantasy and effectively neutered, leaving scores of men isolated and pacified while their lives slowly crumble around them. This, in effect, produces a strange cognitive dissonance in which a man will constantly decry the sorry state of his life, but take a wholesome joy in doing absolutely nothing to improve his circumstances. Why would he? He receives all the validation and dopamine he needs from winning a match of Counter-Strike. Contrary to what middle-aged fathers across the country will tell you, this phenomena of isolated young men consoling themselves through excessive gaming binges is not a product of laziness or failure to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Quite the opposite. In fact, most serious consumers of video games that I know personally are some of the most determined and dedicated men that I've ever met. The issue comes not from work ethic, or lack thereof, but instead that their tireless labor and energy is directed purely into a digital falsehood, an intangible realm behind the screen. They are unwilling, or perhaps incapable, of pouring their energies into work that does not immediately produce the endorphins they have come to expect from winning a match or completing a quest. This leads to a slow and steady atomization, where the only thing sought after a long day of school or work is a hasty retreat into a shaded room, and a lengthy delve into the illusory realm of glowing lights, of beautiful stories and earnest friendships, of work and success, of digital conquest. Some will say that I am wrong, that the existence of popular and successful video game streamers such as PewDiePie and Markiplier disprove my words. They, of course, appear to be happy, they make far more money than I could ever dream to, they have good relationships and social lives. Appearances aren't everything. Many Twitch streamers from a position of anonymity share feelings of depression, extreme stress, burnout, and fatigue. They say that was once a fun hobby has now become their sole means of living. They feel isolated and alone, endlessly feigning excitement each time one of their viewers offers a measly donation. I read a comment from one streamer online. Streaming, for me, gives me something to distract myself. It isn't a job to me, it's something to do for enjoyment. I know that my depression is hard to overcome, but I've been trying to find tasks to keep me busy. Is life really about finding cheap joys and tasks to keep you busy so you don't dwell on the harsh realities of your surroundings for even a moment? Tarkovsky's view on life is validated once again. My own coming to terms with the reality of video games was prolonged and painful. Eventually, however, I realized that if I wanted to live any kind of life at all, that gaming would need to be put behind me. Shockingly, the less I played, the less I wanted to play. The initial motivator when you delete Steam, of course, is boredom. You don't have anything else to do, so you pick up a book, or go out on your bike, or call up some friends to hang out. With time, I truly began to enjoy these activities for what they were. Each one was generative, each one helped build something, whether it was my body, or my mind, or my relationships with others. Life became a slow and gradual upward climb instead of a murky haze of hellish interactions until I could finally run home and turn on the computer. Now, I find it nearly impossible to sit down and play any video game for more than an hour. If I play at all, it's a social vehicle to spend time with my friends. I've cast the artificial where it belongs and begun seeking after reality. I say this not to boast. If my life were given its value only by what I reject, it would be a sad life indeed. I tell you this to provide a positive and personal example of what can happen when you put video games away and start engaging with life once more. Artist Maxwell Renner said that it was not until he put video games behind him that he began to truly ascend. We already suffer from enough illusions in life, and though video games may offer beautiful stories or charming fellowship with friends, there is nothing but good that can come from leaving another illusion behind.